Alright, picture this. You're out on the ice. It's cold, it's still, and you are trying to be as quiet as a mouse. You set your tip up without making a sound. You whisper to your buddy. You even try to control your breathing, because for generations we've been told one thing: noise spooks fish. But what if I told you that all that effort, all that painstaking silence, is the very thing scaring the fish away? Today we are going to tear down that old rule. We're exploring a wild but powerful idea: that fish in the winter aren't afraid of noise, they're terrified of absolute dead silence. Stick with me, because by the end of this, you're going to understand why your quietest days might be your least productive. I'm going to reveal the one thing that signals danger to a fish more than a dropped tackle box. So let me know right now in the comments. Do you believe noise spooks winter fish? Yes or no? Let's see where we all stand before we dive in. So, why does this even matter? Because we spend an incredible amount of energy trying to be quiet. It's a fundamental rule of winter fishing. Where did it come from? Well, your grandpa probably told you, and his grandpa told him. The logic seems to make sense on the surface. We all know fish have a lateral line, that they're incredibly sensitive to vibrations in the water. So, the obvious conclusion is that less vibration equals less spooked fish, right? It's become a habit. We drill our holes, making a ton of racket, and then immediately switch into stealth mode. We tiptoe around, we avoid talking, we treat the ice like it's covered in landmines. We do all this thinking we're being smart, strategic anglers. But what if we're not outsmarting the fish? What if, in our attempt to be invisible, we are actually making ourselves the most obvious and threatening thing on the entire lake? First, let's get one thing straight. The world under the ice is not silent, not even close. We sit up top in the quiet, cold air and assume it's the same down below. But that's a huge misconception. The underwater world is filled with a constant symphony of sounds and vibrations. Think about it from a fish's perspective. There's the constant groaning, cracking, and shifting of the ice sheet itself, which creates a huge amount of noise. There's the subtle vibration of current moving through the water column, even in a lake. There are the sounds of baitfish schools moving, crayfish crawling, and countless other little creatures going about their business. This constant low-level hum of activity is the fish's normal. It's their baseline for what a safe and living environment sounds like. It's the soundtrack of their entire existence. The idea of a perfectly silent world is a human one, not a reality for a fish. Now let's talk about that famous lateral line. Anglers always bring it up as the reason to be quiet, but we often misunderstand what it's really for. It isn't just an ear. It's a highly sophisticated vibration detector. It's a full-body sensor that tells a fish everything about its immediate surroundings. Yes, it picks up threats, but more importantly, it picks up opportunities. A fish uses its lateral line to detect the faint flutter of a dying minnow, the scuttling of a crawfish on the rocks, or the movement of other fish in its school. It's a tool for interpreting the normal, everyday vibrations of life. When all those vibrations are present, the fish is at ease. It can relax, it can hunt, it can feed. That background noise is a blanket of security. It tells the fish that everything is as it should be. The lateral line is tuned to notice changes in that normal state, not just the presence of sound itself. So what makes up this natural background noise? Let's really break it down. As I said, the ice itself is a huge contributor. It expands and contracts with temperature changes, creating pops, groans, and deep rumbles that travel for miles through the water. This is a constant. Then you have the wind. Even a slight breeze moving across a vast sheet of ice creates a unique, low-frequency vibration that fish are completely accustomed to. Under the water, baitfish are rarely perfectly still. Their fins are moving, their gills are pumping, and as a school, they create a distinct vibrational signature. All of these sounds together create the ambient noise of the lake. This is the definition of safe to a fish. It's the sound of a living, breathing ecosystem. It's a world full of subtle cues that mean food is present and life is proceeding as normal. This is the environment they have evolved to thrive in over millions of years. Here's a real-world analogy to help you understand this. Imagine you live in a big bustling city. You're used to the constant hum of traffic, the sound of people talking, the distant sirens. It all blends into a background noise that you barely even notice. It's normal. It's the sound of life. Now, what would happen if one afternoon, every single one of those sounds just stopped? Absolute dead silence. Would you feel relaxed, or would you be on high alert? You'd probably be terrified. You'd be looking out the window, wondering what on earth just happened. That sudden absence of sound is far more alarming than the noise itself. It signals that something is deeply, fundamentally wrong. For a fish, our painstaking effort to be quiet on the ice creates that exact same terrifying, city-gone silent effect right on top of their heads. Let's think like a predator for a second. In nature, what creates a zone of absolute unnatural silence? A predator that is actively stalking its prey. Think of a great blue heron standing perfectly motionless at the water's edge. It creates a dead zone around it. Think of a big pike hiding in the weeds, waiting to ambush a perch. It is perfectly still, its presence marked by an absence of the normal vibrations of a smaller fish. In the natural world, complete and utter silence is often the sound of impending death. It's a signal that a highly efficient killer is nearby. So when we, as anglers, tiptoe onto the ice and create this bubble of perfect stillness, we aren't being stealthy. We are sending the clearest possible signal to every fish below that a large, dangerous predator is right above them, patiently waiting to strike. We are mimicking the one thing they are genetically programmed to avoid at all costs. Our unnatural silence is a dead giveaway. When we walk carefully and stand perfectly still over our holes, we are creating a vibrational void. All the normal, subtle vibrations from our boots on the ice, our gear shifting, our own movements, they all stop. We essentially cast a sound shadow on the lake bottom. A fish swimming along, feeling the normal vibrations of the environment, suddenly enters this zone of nothingness. Its lateral line, which was receiving constant information, suddenly gets zero input from that direction. This is a massive red flag. It's not the same as just a quiet spot in the lake. It's a void that is actively created by a large presence. Instead of blending in, we are highlighting our exact position. We're basically putting up a giant invisible sign that says, "Danger, predator here," and we're planting it right on top of our expensive lures. But what about the auger? People will say, the auger is super loud, it has to scare fish, and yes, it does. The initial loud grinding noise of drilling a hole is a major disturbance. Fish will absolutely scatter. We see it on our flashers all the time. But here's the critical difference. They almost always come back, and often pretty quickly. Why? Because that noise is temporary, and in a way explainable. It's a loud event that happens, and then it's over. The fish move off, and when the loud, grinding vibration stops, they slowly filter back in to investigate or resume their patterns. It's like a car alarm going off in the city. It's annoying and startling, but once it stops, life goes on. It doesn't represent a persistent lurking threat. It was a disturbance, not an active predator that is now silently stalking them from a fixed position. The lingering threat is the real killer of your fishing success. The auger noise is a sprint, it's over fast. But our unnatural silence is a marathon. It's a persistent, nagging pressure that keeps fish on high alert. Imagine that fish that's scattered from the auger. It starts to creep back towards the area, and instead of finding the normal hum of the environment, it finds that creepy, silent void you've created. It's not going to relax. It's not going to feed confidently. Its fins will be tense, its senses will be on high alert, and it will be far, far less likely to commit to eating your bait. It might swim in to look, but that lingering feeling of a predator nearby will almost always cause it to turn away at the last second. This, right here, is why you see so many lookers on your flasher that refuse to bite. The threat of your silence is what's holding them back. Let me paint a picture for you that I'm sure many of you have experienced. You get to the lake early. You find your spot, drill your holes, and you're as quiet as possible. An hour goes by, nothing. Then, another group of anglers shows up about 100 yards away. They're not quiet. You can hear them laughing, dropping gear, and drilling a dozen holes. You probably shake your head and think, well, that's it for this spot. But then, 10 minutes later, your flasher suddenly lights up with fish. Or better yet, your tip-up flag flies. Is that just a coincidence? I don't think so. The distant commotion and vibrations from that noisy group signaled widespread activity, masking your own presence and putting the fish into a more active, less wary state. They created a field of normal noise that made your silent spot seem less threatening. This leads to a radical idea. Fish aren't always scared of noise. Sometimes they're curious about it. Those vibrations from the other anglers, from a snowmobile driving by in the distance, from the ice shifting, these things signal activity. And to a predatory fish, activity can often mean opportunity. It can mean that a school of bait fish has been stirred up. It can mean that other, smaller fish are feeding, kicking up sediment, and creating a chance for an easy meal. Think about it. A completely dead, static environment is a low probability place to find food. A dynamic one, with things happening, is where the action is. So, a certain level of noise and vibration can actually draw fish in from a distance. They move towards it not in fear, but with curiosity, hoping to find out if this activity is something they can capitalize on. This concept suggests the existence of a safe zone of sound. Fish might actively avoid the two extremes. The sharp, sudden, threatening bang of an object dropped right over their head, and the creepy, unnatural void of absolute silence. They might actually prefer and even move towards areas that have a certain level of normal, non-threatening noise. Why? Because that ambient noise provides cover. It's like vibrational camouflage. In an environment with a baseline level of vibration, it's harder for a predator to pick out the specific movements of any one fish. It allows them to relax and go about their business with a lower sense of vulnerability. When you just act like a normal part of that environment instead of trying to erase yourself, you might actually be making the fish around your lure feel safer and more willing to bite. Now, let's be clear about something. I am not telling you to go out on the ice and start a dance party. There's a huge difference between creating a normal level of ambient noise and creating sharp, sudden, alarming sounds. Stomping your feet heavily right next to your hole is bad. Dropping a heavy metal scoop on the ice is bad. These are sharp, loud, close proximity impacts that are not part of the natural soundscape. These are the sounds that will genuinely spook fish, because they are aggressive and signal immediate, direct danger. Think of it like the difference between a constant city hum and a gunshot right outside your window. One is normal background, the other is a direct threat. Our goal isn't to be loud. Our goal is to stop being unnaturally silent and instead just be normal. The real difference is rhythm and intention. Natural sounds, even loud ones like shifting ice, have a certain random natural quality to them. They are part of the world. The vibrations from you just walking around, checking a tip-up, or jigging in your hole fit into that world. They are the sounds of a living thing being active. Unnatural silence, on the other hand, has no rhythm. It's a void. A sharp, sudden bang is also unnatural because its acoustic profile is so different from the background hum. It's about blending in, not by being invisible, but by being a non-threatening part of the overall sensory landscape. You don't need to erase your sonic footprint. You just need to make sure your footprint sounds like a normal creature moving around, not a predator that is about to strike from a dead silent ambush. So, what does all this mean for you on the ice in a practical sense? It means you can relax. You don't have to be afraid to move around a little bit. You can walk from one hole to another at a normal pace. You can talk to your fishing partner in a normal voice. You don't have to hold your breath for 10 minutes every time you see a mark on your flasher. In fact, a little bit of movement might actually be a good thing. The subtle vibrations from you shifting your weight or lightly scuffing your boots can create just enough normal noise to mask the unnatural stillness that might otherwise put fish on edge. It's about finding that middle ground. Don't be a brute, but for heaven's sake, stop trying to be a ghost. It's likely doing you more harm than good. Here is a practical experiment that I want you to try on your very next trip. This will prove the point better than any words I can say. Pick 2 holes, maybe 20 or 30 feet apart. For the first hour, fish one hole using your usual super stealth mode. Tiptoe, be silent, do everything you've always been told. Keep track of how many bites you get and how many fish you see on the flasher that just look and leave. Then, for the second hour, move to the other hole and just act normal. Walk around it, check your phone, talk to your buddy, jig your rod. Don't stomp, just be a normal, active person. See what happens. I am willing to bet that you will not only see more fish, but you will get more of them to actually commit and bite. Compare the results for yourself. The evidence will be right there on the end of your line. We have to admit that part of our belief in silence is purely psychological. As anglers, we want to feel like we are being skilled hunters, and in our minds, a skilled hunter is a silent one. Being quiet makes us feel more professional. It feels like we're doing something right, that we're giving ourselves every possible advantage. It's a powerful ritual. We've been told it works, we do it, and when we catch a fish, we attribute that success to our stealth. But when we don't catch fish, we rarely blame our silence. We blame the weather, the barometric pressure, or 100 other things. We need to be willing to question these deeply ingrained beliefs, even the ones that feel intuitively correct. It's entirely possible that what feels like our greatest advantage is actually our biggest handicap. Let's rethink the classic spooked fish scenario. We've all seen it 1,000 times on our electronics. A big, beautiful mark comes screaming in towards your lure. It gets closer, closer, and then, at the last second, it veers off and disappears. What's our immediate reaction? We think, darn it, I must have moved. I spooked it. We blame a tiny accidental noise we made. But what if the exact opposite is true? What if that fish was drawn in by the vibration of your jig, but as it got closer, it entered that bubble of unnatural silence created by your motionless presence? What if the lack of any other confirming normal vibrations is what screamed trap and caused it to flee? The spooking agent wasn't your movement, it was your unnatural stillness. That one shift in thinking can change how you interpret everything you see on your flasher. Think about our lures for a second. In open water and even for ice fishing, we constantly use lures with rattles. Buckshot rattle spoons, lipless crankbaits with noisy BBS inside them, you name it. Why do we use them? Because we know that sound and vibration are powerful attractants. We know that the rattle mimics the sound of a distressed bait fish, and can call fish in from a long way off. It's a dinner bell. So why do we believe that this proven principle of sound attraction suddenly and completely reverses itself the second the lake freezes over? It doesn't make sense. The fish are the same, their senses are the same. A vibration that signals a potential meal is still a vibration that signals a potential meal. We embrace sound in our lures, but simultaneously try to eliminate it from our bodies. It's a total contradiction in strategy. Now, is there an exception to this rule? Of course. Fishing is all about nuance. There are probably some situations where being quieter is better. If you are fishing for extremely spooky panfish, like bluegill or crappie, in 2 or 3 feet of water under clear ice, then yes, your movements and shadow can be a major issue. In that very specific shallow water scenario, a more stealthy approach probably does pay off. But for the vast majority of ice fishing situations, especially when we are targeting aggressive predators like pike, walleye, lake trout, or perch in 5 feet of water or more, this principle holds true. The deeper the water and the more aggressive the species, the more I am willing to bet that your unnatural silence is a far greater enemy to your success than a little bit of normal noise. So here is the big final takeaway. I want this to be the one thing you remember from this video. Your goal on the ice should not be to become a silent ghost. Your goal should be to stop creating an unnatural, predatory void of silence, and instead become a normal, non-threatening part of the lake's environment. Be active. Be present. Don't stomp around, but don't hold your breath. Make your vibrations just another part of the lake's daily soundtrack. Let the fish know you're there, but in a way that sounds like every other living thing. When you stop trying to be invisible and just act normal, you remove the one signal that truly puts fish on high alert. That, my friends, might just be the secret to turning a slow day on the ice into one you'll never forget. So there you have it. We have just taken one of the oldest, most sacred rules of ice fishing and turned it completely on its head. For years, we've been tiptoeing around, thinking we were being clever, but the big twist, the real what if moment, is realizing that our silence has been screaming danger to the very fish we're trying to catch. It's a complete 180-degree shift in thinking. This changes things. It means you can relax a bit more on the ice. It means you can focus on your presentation, on finding the fish, and less on a self-defeating quest for absolute silence. Thank you so much for sticking with me through this. If this video blew your mind a little, or even just made you think, do me a favor and hit that like button, and definitely subscribe, because we are always questioning the conventional rules around here. Now I have to ask you again, especially after hearing all this, what's the noisiest thing you've ever done on the ice that was immediately followed by catching a big fish? Let's hear the stories in the comments. I bet there are some really good ones out there.